Okay, you know.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Conservation Heritage Advisory Committee. I'm Paul McLaughlin, Vice Chair, and Chris Toomey, Chair, can't make it today, so I should be standing as Chair. So, moving on to the agenda, we have apologies. We have apologies from Chris Toomey. Any of the others?
Councillor Bonser. Hey, you know.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Conservation Heritage.
You said that moving your lips.
I'm Paul McLaughlin, Vice Chair, and Chris Toomey, Chair, can't make it today, so I should be standing as Chair. Moving on to the agenda, we have apologies. We have
Start worrying when it goes.
Councillor Bonser.
Yeah.
I've seen my car in the building, but
Are you all right, Lindsay?
Yeah.
It's okay. Okay.
Carry on.
So any late items introduced? I'm not aware of any. Right? No. No late items?
No late items.
No. Okay. Declarations of interest.
Yes, I've got one. First item.
First item, 51 Brigate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Max. Minutes of the meeting on the 7th of September. What? 12th of January. Any comments on the minutes of the last meeting? No? I have a proposer. Seconder? Thanks. You will have seen the list in the documentation of the item attendance of the last meeting, and an updated list as well by email. Any comments on those? No. Okay. So, and following that, item 6 on the agenda, applications not being considered. Everybody will have had a chance to have a look at those. Is there any comments on those? Anybody happy with those? Okay. So moving on to the main item then, applications to be considered.
Okay.
So the first item to be considered is Chloe, over to you.
Thank you. 5051 Brigate. There's a Great Star listed building in the Frigate Conservation Area. The proposal, and there's 2 applications, a full application, listed building application. So the application is changing into the floor for 2 apartments and installation of 8 solar panels to the front roof elevation. And the listed building application is internal alterations, installation of a sign, as well as the 18 panel. There has been a previous application some time ago, which was for the conversion of the upper floors to 4 apartments. This is for 2 apartments. So there's the beauty salon on the ground floor. So just running through slides quickly, you'll have seen information online as regards this application, these 2 applications. So front elevation, the main changes or main proposals is the 18 solar panels, front roof slope, and a sign. There's no details of the proposed materials in terms of the signage, and also there's reference to stone wall cleaning and repairs within the application. The roof slope existing applications like the condition 6 solar panel, some existing And there's no proposal to change the current office treatment layout. So the first floor and also changes proposed. There's a ensuite. There's also a kitchen being proposed. Feelings of closure being removed. There's no details on vents, flues, drainage runs, that sort of thing. So it's just to show you the sort of details inside the building, and you've seen photographs of and there's an intervening door between the two buildings, which is proposed to be blocked up. And to the first floor also, it looks like they've had a leak, and they're looking to undertake, not quite finished, obviously some repairs. Repairs on a like basis. In terms of the second floor, there are some bathrooms being proposed, as you've seen on the plans. Some subdivision in part of in one of the rooms to the rear, yeah, so the main thing is obviously see that works have started on the division and received last time. In some of the internal divisions and create kitchens within some of the rooms and bathrooms. So the floor is not many changes.
Okay, so partially implemented approval from previous scheme. This one seeks to reduce the number of flats. There are a couple of things on it that are in addition. The solar panels to the front and the signage. On the signage, can you just clarify? There is no signage there at the moment.
No, there are not. It obviously looks as if there was
There was
individual
some
letter signage.
I seem to remember there was a hotel sign there at one point. Yeah. So yeah, the solar panels, clearly they're quite an intervention. The cleaning of the building and repairs to stonework, whilst it would be welcomed, we have no details on how this will be done. So if I open it up for general comment, Chris.
Yeah, I think a lot of the alterations are fairly content.
Just having seen that photograph of that needs to be dealt with in a improved way previously. But clearly the solar panels are a major concern to me. You know, take the point that the pitch of the roof is quite low, and see a lot of them. But it just from the photograph, and also knowing that the site, you do see the roof from the other side of the road. And the thing with solar panels is they stand proud of the roof. A small amount. And that in fact makes it worse, you know, if they're the type I think most people use. You know, they stand up on a frame. You know, they will very out of place in what is it's an important building in an important frontage in the middle of our prime conservation area. You know, so it really seems totally inappropriate to put those. So if they're saying that has to be part of the proposal, then I could only
propose that it's refused.
Okay, that's great. Any other comments? Just on the solar panels, current guidance from Historic England is if they affect principal elevation, then they're deemed unsuitable.
So that would be a reason for refusing listed building consent, but not necessarily planning permission. Right. Grade 2 star, did you say?
Grade 2 star, yeah.
Oh, well.
But it's also in a conservation area.
Yeah.
Would we, if it wasn't grade 2, would we be allowing it in a conservation area? Where it's visible from the public realm?
It's very hard to argue against climate change and all that,
Oh,
isn't
yeah,
it?
I think we're all in favour of
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
yes, we do have to protect our heritage at the same time.
If the south elevation wasn't facing Friargate and into the conservation area, I think I'd probably feel differently about it.
Yes, it was on the back,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure.
well, and less prominent in what is really premier conservation area in Derby. So,
If there was a low pitch roof with a parapet, say, that would be a different matter. wouldn't it?
Yeah.
This does have a,
It's visible.
this does have a small parapet, apparently.
Yeah.
Not enough though, is it?
Well, if you look, you can't actually see the roof because the parapet, if you're standing,
And if you're standing on the other side of the road,
yeah,
the pavement on the other side is slightly raised, isn't it?
as Chris says, the panels actually will sit proud of the roof.
Yeah.
mhm.
So,
The other thing is that we really need to see details of the signage.
yes, indeed, details and signage are very important.
Could I just ask about, it says in here the installation of solar panels at side roof elevations on here.
There isn't a side.
There isn't a side, there's a front and rear, so
Right,
that's it.
so,
That's an
oh, right,
I think there's
Right.
the word "and" has been added, and it should say the front side.
oh, right.
The front
Yeah.
side as opposed to the back side.
Yes, as opposed to the backside, which we don't talk about.
I think we also need to condition that the method of the cleaning needs to be approved by
Absolutely, yeah.
officers.
Yeah, it needs to be a properly taken job. Internally, I don't think I've got any great concerns about that. Obviously, the plastic pipe that's been installed, which we need to know more about that, Chloe. But I fancy it's from a launder within the roof itself. We have a photograph of it as it was, and that was a cast iron pipe. So put it back as plastic, which, to be honest, has advantages in terms of it's not going to rust and it's not going to deteriorate. But the cast iron one had clearly been there a lot of years anyway. But it was the repairs to the plasterwork with plasterboard that caused me the concern. I think that'd be interesting. So I think in summary, Lowlands, it's an objection on the basis of the solar panels and lack of information in terms of the rest of the details.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Middleton House. All very familiar with this development. This is yet another part to it, which involves the small garage block, stable block, whatever you want to call it, to the rear of the site. Chloe, can I ask you to give us a resume, please?
Yes. Position of it. This is the previously shown, so it was previously approved as a bin store and cycle store, and a concrete linking was removed, as you can see on the first photograph, to two of the archways and strengthened, and two double doors were stated. The proposal now has converted to the on shows the garden area, which has little railings and hedging, some paving, floor to the exterior, and then the layout as we've seen information. And the proposal is to retain to install some dark lights to be planted. It was supposed to be cleaned and made good where necessary. So in terms of
Okay, so previous cycle store and bin store being now converted into a single dwelling. No external extensions as such, just alterations to the openings. One question, Chloe, do we know where the bin stores are now going to be located? Did that form part of the application?
it didn't.
No. So there is that point to consider at some point. I'll open it up for discussion. Chris?
Yeah, I'm fairly content to. I seem to remember when we went on the site not too long ago, probably just by July, yeah. There was a discussion about this building. It seemed to general consensus was that would be used in association with the use of the main site. The whole thing's residential. It's sort of tucked away in a corner as well. It's sort of retaining the integrity of the building. It's just changing the use and the use of the own. Oh, I wasn't sure about the there's something called a hedge wall.
Yeah.
On the drawing. It's the new hedge wall, which is a concept that's new to me. Really. I think it means it's a hedge.
That was my interpretation.
Yeah. And wasn't sure really whether the hedge is kind of a feature in the end of a path. So I didn't feel overly strongly about it, but I thought maybe something like a brick wall would be kind of more appropriate in offer a better way of making that a private space. It's got two garden bits, hasn't it? One this end, one. So I just wondered about that really. But overall, I think the use is I'm quite content with it.
I suppose you could argue a little bit of greenery down there might not go amiss. Any other comments? No?
Well, I'll just comment that my recollection is that the very first application was to demolish this building.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
yes,
build
it was to do.
a small block of flats or something.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
And we've rejected that. But as far as this proposal is concerned, I suppose they want the hedge to make it a little bit more cosy and domestic
yes.
around the back.
I personally have a couple of observations on it. On the elevation, where they're retaining the concrete lintel, at the moment there is no central pier between the doorways. The concrete lintel just spans over that. but they're reinstating that brick pier, which actually does away with the need for that concrete lintel. So the proportion of the openings there would be much improved if that concrete lintel was removed and the brickwork made good. The other point still relates to that doors. They put forward this sort of pseudo Georgian paned door, where I think a simpler 3-panel metal door would be more appropriate to that particular design. Do you feel that justified in those comments?
Yeah, I think you're right. It doesn't relate to anything on the site. It's not, I can recollect.
But does it allow light in that a solid door wouldn't? And the one they've got there doesn't allow light in.
No, that it would allow light in. It's just the fact that it's divided into individual.
Oh,
panes.
right.
Yeah.
It would be cleaner.
I read that as glass. All right. It
Yes.
isn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're all happy about that part. And just a few bits of detail in resolving.
Just for clarity, so that's no objection subject to the items that were
Yeah.
mentioned. By
Yeah.
Nigel.
Very much. So moving on, the next item is the Vitality Dental Clinic, 114 Green Lane. Grade 2 listed building, and the proposal is to retain the dental use at lower ground floor and ground floor, but convert the upper floors into house of multiple occupation. Chloe. Name?
As you mentioned, yes, grade 2 is the Green Lanes and heated stationaries. So just to run through briefly the information that you've seen online is that there are proposed to the frontage, although there isn't any structural details. This needs to do with so we're not sure of the detail. But apart from that, there's proposed to be some repairs to the front. In terms of the layout, inside and results, there's a dental practice already in the building, but what they're proposing is for them to use part of the lower ground floor and the ground floor, and then proposing residential above, which includes residential access in the rear and access up the main staircase. They're proposing additional staircase within one of the main principal rooms to the frontage. So that's the main impact on that. On the first and second floor, once again, there's some changes in terms of bathrooms, kitchens. Doesn't seem to be any some flues in drainage rooms, not on drawings. So obviously there's some subdivision within these main principal rooms. So one of the areas is in the front rooms. There's a proposed enclosure. They haven't been detailed confirmed whether it would be full height. Obviously there's a cornice, or whether it's part. Moving up to the top floor, there's already a very large roof light, and the stairs are quite fine. And there's a proposal to install a floor in here with a ensuite. The other quite major change that's been proposed is the top floor, and we're proposing to lower the floor in 2 rooms. So throughout this building, there seems to be a step from the landing into the rooms. That's on the second and top floor. And in this one, they're proposing to lower both floor structures to allow more headroom. Obviously, that's part of the management intervention, is this installation of the new stair. And that's mentioned on the sections which we've seen as part of the application. To the exterior and the only to the rear, just 2 casement windows at ground floor, because obviously the lower ground floor we're not proposing to. We're proposing quite thick double glazed replacement windows to all 4. However, on site, it is noticed that on the first floor, sash windows do look to be repairable. So it's
Okay, so there are elements on this where repairs to the building will be significantly welcomed. There are other elements which I think are quite contentious, particularly the, as Chloe pointed out, the lowering of the upper floor and the intervention of the staircase, which destroys one of the principal reception rooms on the front of the building, where there's really, I don't feel there's any particular need for that, because the building has always been served by the core staircase, which, as you've seen, is quite an elegant piece of architecture. So I think just it's up for general discussion.
Part of the description I've read seems to imply that lowering the floor upstairs is actually taking it back to where it was, because it's alleged, or not proven, that the floor is actually sitting on packing pieces on top of the original joists. So I don't know whether that's true or not. If that's true, then I wouldn't have any objection to it.
Chloe's had a good look, haven't you? You can't determine.
I've had a look, and I think some in terms of statement, the information that's missing is a proper analysis of the floor structures, both in terms of the where they're proposing the new staircase, and also in terms of these floors. So they haven't.
So
missing information.
Yeah, we're missing information. What you say, Mike, yes, it does refer to that, but we've sort of gone one stage further and actually asked the question, so we can have that exposed. But until we got that information, if it is a floating floor on top of an existing floor, then we probably have no objection at all. But we need to know.
Yeah, okay. I think that what's the word? Internal double glazing stuff is horrid. It was. Yes, we need to get that out.
Yeah, I think that the details on the windows which they've submitted are not entirely appropriate, so we'd have to address that. Anybody else? Any concerns about the stairway in the?
Yeah, I echo your own thoughts entirely, Paul, on that.
Yeah, I think it's an unnecessary intervention.
Quite.
I think I've been in the building. There's quite a beautiful banister.
Yeah, there is.
I think it goes the whole
Really
length
nice
of
Georgian.
Yeah, I mean, it's put in Middleton House as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And that at all costs should remain. I thought.
I suppose they're motivated by trying to get the 2 uses entirely separate, aren't they? By inserting that additional staircase. But as your comments and Mike's, I don't think it's necessary. There must be some other way of arranging the doorways and access to. They've obviously got the front entrance for back residential,
Yeah.
And you know, there must be some way of
Well, there is.
making it work. Really.
They all feed into that central core
Yeah.
staircase, which is the best feature of the entire building.
Yeah.
So utilise it, mixed use to go to the dental surgery and everything. I think would be entirely appropriate.
Am I right in thinking the dental will be on the ground and lower?
Lower, yeah. But there is a cycle store and bin store for the apartments, flats. Lower ground as well.
Lower ground, yeah.
And for a HMO, it's got adequate parking, which is
Well, it is.
very unusual.
It is.
Yeah.
It's where the garden once was, obviously. Rather the garden than
Big gardens, that's right. Single occupation is what we really want.
That might be a bit too far. It's a nice looking building.
It's a beautiful
It is.
set of buildings. Yeah, I've done it. That whole composition there.
Yeah.
The detail is remarkably similar to 5051 Frygate if you look closely.
Yes.
I think it's Henry Stevens again.
And of course, opposite, there's the Grade 2 Star, the college.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So the setting of that is relevant.
So is an objection on the basis of the two interventions that law being subjected to further investigation. Section of the additional staircase, lower ground two. Clearly, there needs to be improvements on the details of the windows. Detail on the repairs to propose, which so we welcome, particularly the opening up of that dental soffit. Right, moving on to the outline application for the demolition of the Eagle Market and the mixed development use, which we talked about the past couple of meetings and made comments previously. I've got a copy of the comments that were made. If you'd like me to give you a zip of those, I will do. So the basically what we said was that we agree that there is a very sterile frontage to the Mortgage currently, market events, and that we would welcome that to be opened up. So that was a benefit. The overall design components are fairly meaningful in terms of public realm. We improve links to the riverside. We improve links to the conservation areas towards the marketplace, and East Street. The detail of the heights and more exploration was asked for in terms of how the heights relate to the cityscape, the skyline, etc., and which wasn't available at the time, but they've now produced some information relating to that, so we can have a look at that. And then the Bradshaw Way site, again, general support for it, but again, analysis of the various heights of the building and the impact on the skyline, and particularly the link back to the Nightingale Quarter and developed the way. The links to the riverside we endorsed as being welcome as well. So, Chloe, do you want to just update us on
Yes.
anything I missed?
So you see the biggest reference. Quite right in terms of it's affected. It's outside the Eagle Market is outside obviously the Durham Holly Mills Road site, which is within its wider setting beyond this point. The buildings, including the cathedral, the former central library, tower, big bridge, 45% British Street, so this has changed, so things will affect those. It's outside the city centre conservation area, but it's adjacent to it. I know other conservation areas won't be recently. The proposal is an outline application for demolition, parking existing Eagle Market theatre, erection of a mixed-use development, as you probably know. And the outline states that all matters are reserved, so the application is looking at the following. Obviously, people notice that there's a heritage statement, heritage impact assessment, but it's been noted that they don't fully seem to use the ICOMOS guidance, heritage impact assessments affecting World Heritage Sites. There is a lot of comprehensive information on connectivity, public realm, regeneration of the area, creating character, and access, as you already mentioned. Just moving on, in terms of the proposed blocks, they range from 2D1 to block C. So D1 and 2 are quite low level, and block C is 32 metres, so 11 stories. Then block B1, the next one up, is 45 metres, which is 15 stories. Block A3 is approximately 45.5 metres, 14 to 15 stories. A1, which is 56 metres, approximately 18 to 19 stories, and the tallest block is 92 metres, which is approximately 30 stories.
Does it know?
So I've got some, they have submitted a number of viewpoints, and I'm not going to show you, I'm not going to be able to show you all of them now, but sort of you've seen all of them in the application. Yeah. So I'll just run through quickly. You're also familiar with the layout, which hasn't changed since the submission. So you would see, for instance, some of the visuals, visualizations that have been submitted. There's some general ones. So obviously the red line being the outline of the people on the proposal. This is the one, obviously this is the yes, this is on Canal Frygate, and at the moment above the bridge you can see top of the section. Red line shows all the backdrop behind, directly behind. Shows it to be hidden by some of the existing development. But there are a number of other views on the World Heritage Site towards the city centre and where it will be seen. So you can just about you can see elements on the skyline on the Derby box. It's another box.
Okay, thank you, Chloe. Well, as you can see, and you will have looked at all these online, hopefully, the development clearly, whilst there are elements of it that are welcomed, the height of the building is going to have a very significant impact on the city skyline and the views within the city from surrounding areas. It's going to change the complexion of Derby completely. So I'll open it up for comment. Robin.
The bit that frightens me is demolition of the theatre. That might not be a conservation matter, but where are they going to go? The cinema rooms, the Guildhall, the Hippodrome? If I know it's only an outline, and I don't suppose it'll ever happen. Like a lot of these things, they put these things forward that then set a precedent, and the city council will have agreed to demolition of the theatre. Now, when we went to that exhibition, I asked about it directly, and that's just an option. We could do something else and keep the theatre. But here is the application with demolition of the theatre. You could read that sentence as part demolition of the theatre, and if that made a different entrance or so on and left the auditorium and so on. It's a very superior theatre, better than most of the West End, and we should be very, very proud of it. So I want to put a marker down at this stage that Save Derby's theatre is important. Having said that, the heights of the buildings and so on, English Heritage of Heritage England, isn't it? Have commented on the heights of those, and there's really no justification other than, oh, wouldn't it be good to have more people living in Derby? Well, would they want to live in the sky?
I agree entirely. I think. Yeah, there is no justification in any of the reports as to why that building should be so high. But the thing that worries me about this, like you've said about theatre, demolition theatre, because it's an outline application, they're establishing certain principles.
Yes.
And once we get to the detail stage, then they'll say, well, you've established this. We're not going back on those now. So I think we're in a very dangerous position here. I think what we ought to be saying is that we can't realistically consider these in at the moment because it's not in detail. If we make general comments about we think the buildings are far too high, which we do, and it destroys the city skyline as we have it now, and as it's been for quite a few centuries. So. Yeah, I'm worried that we're being put into a corner and trapped. We won't be able to get out of it.
When the Derby On cinema block thing went in, I think we were all a bit tripped, weren't we? And this one, at least, is honest. And it says that coming down from Abbey Hill there, you'll see a lot of grey boxes, not just the one that's ugly at the moment, and we hope one day will go. It's the opposite. It's they're multiplying, they're breeding.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I'd rather see a tall, elegant town than that nasty, formless box that's just been plonked unceremoniously on top. I think some refer to it as a shoebox.
Yeah. Well, we're not debating that now, but I quite fine line that was shown on the drawing, and somebody said, "Well, what is that?" Oh,
well, it's just added and amended because I wasn't involved at the time.
No, I think the heights and that they're an issue clearly, but we need to see the detail of the character of these buildings, because we said it on our previous statement that the architecture has to be exceptional. So, yeah. Ian.
Well, I've got the letter that we've sent from the Civic Society, which basically reinforces what Robin's just been saying as well. I'll just quickly go through and say, look,
we said, the height of the apartment blocks must comply with the tall buildings policy. We've actually got a tall buildings policy now, so I mean, it's something that they've obviously seen.
They've quoted it,
Yeah,
but not actually taken any notice.
Quoted it and ignored it.
The views from the flats will be poor to compensate for this. The design of the flats and the amenity area should be of a high standard. As you said, we think that they ought to make a generous allowance of internal spaces to allow for people to work from home. This day and age. And then taking Robin's point, this application includes the demolition of Derby's main theatre. Permission should be conditioned on an application for a replacement theatre being built. And I think the Theatres Trust made the same comment as that as well. Because we don't want to be in a situation where the hole in the ground where the theatre was.
Yeah.
And nothing to replace it.
Nothing to replace it.
But maybe, second thoughts, bearing in mind, perhaps we ought to just simply refuse approval to that scheme.
Yeah.
Until we have a new theatre.
Yeah.
Oh, I
I
think
mean, apparently the council have been given 20 odd million towards one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
is that going to happen? I mean, it was announced with big fanfare only a few months ago.
But yeah, it's not theatre for theatre. It's culture and leisure in the city. And at the moment, we are deprived of the Guildhall, a listed building, and absolutely nothing is being done about it and hasn't been done for years. And that is depriving the city of its amateur dramatic show space. Now, if you're going to have a new theatre, great. But the existing theatre is a superb theatre with a huge side stage, and at the back of the stage, there's no central aisle, there's good leg room, there's a car park underneath it. We shouldn't be losing that, even if it's only used for amateurs and visiting companies, as opposed to the learning theatre. And we should be increasing the amount of leisure and culture offer, including the Hippodrome and others. But you see, there are people who will say, why are the heritage mafia against these tall buildings? We must build. Derby needs prosperity. And people say, well, looking at that, it's because it's near the cathedral. And people say, it's a hell of a long way from the cathedral. So, and they probably get somebody from the cathedral to say they're in favour of it, as they did last time.
Yeah.
You know, we've got to
We as a
be clear at this stage.
but the implications of that, you can't just compare it to the cathedral. It's everything else that's around it. It's the impact it's going to have on all the conservation areas. We saw the view from Friargate. It's not complementary at all. I have no problem with tall buildings, but
In the right place.
in the right place. Let's get the context sorted out. Let's get them to get the context sorted out first. The lower scale buildings, the 45-metre buildings, I think that could be quite acceptable. But 92 metres of building, three times the size of the cathedral tower. It's
bigger than anything else that Derby's ever had.
Well, it's bigger than Nottingham's got as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I just can't see, and there is no justification in
And
any.
we're still, I mean, comparatively, we're a small city. It's not like central Birmingham, central Manchester, that could take these tall buildings.
Unless, of course, it's one of these trade union bargaining things where, like in Becketwell, they wanted 11 stories, and when there was an objection, they said, "Oh, we'll come down to 7." You know, and we ended up with a tall building, but it was a bit of doing this, and perhaps that's what they're doing. They're overbidding to come back.
Sure, yeah.
Or is this just all in principle?
I think it was 19 down to 11.
talk about the comprehensive. I'm sure you've looked at it. Obviously, this was a site which was identified as being able to take some height, but that the height that was recommended was about 12 stories, approximately, between 2 times and 3 times the context height, which is 45 stories, to maintain the character and distinctiveness of the city skyline. The height of the tallest building that's been proposed, which is A2, is defined as 5 times the context. So, in terms of talking stuff, its context as having this definition, jarring contrast disconnected from the prevailing urban context height of place can be seen across the city even far away. So that would be a direct quote from the tall building study.
Ain't no babble.
Yeah.
Blather.
Chris?
Sorry.
Have you not finished?
No, I just, no, there was another interesting point that we've not discussed, and likewise, the closure and demolition of Eagle Market will leave us with no market in the city centre at all. An outdoor market should be introduced into the marketplace as soon as possible, even if it's just only twice a week. So, we're concerned that we haven't got a market, an Eagle market as well, apart from the theatre. We haven't got a market.
We've also received representations from some of the stall holders who feel that they've been sort of sidelined in this and basically disenfranchised. And they have been offered other sites which of course are more expensive.
And the market hall, of course, is being redeveloped.
I mean, I know that's not really a conservation issue, but I think the market in any town or city is a sort of integral element of civic life.
It is, particularly to Derby, which was recognised as being one of the best market towns that people.
We've only had one for 800 years. So.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last point on our letter, we suggest a section on our 6 agreement should be put into place to provide funds for the refurbishment of the Hippodrome. Bearing in mind that they're demolishing the theatre, they ought to be able to pay for the refurbishment of the Hippodrome.
Yeah.
And then there's some left field comments from Peter Steer that I've received. And he's basically concerned about the densities. I mean, when you consider that if you work it out, the density is more than you'd normally get in a London development. So, we're talking about these heights and how many dwellings there are. Going to be 875 dwellings, which brings it right above what would be acceptable in Greater London Authority, where that's 350 would have been their maximum. We're talking about sort of 875. So I think we need to look at that. I mean, it begs the question, basically, who would want to live there in such a high density development? And I mean, who are the people that they're trying to attract into the city?
There's also the question.
I've not seen that mentioned anywhere in any of the documents.
No justification.
Who are we trying to attract?
And where are the amenities for all these people?
Yeah.
Where are the doctors?
Chris. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, where's Max for me?
Sorry,
I'll be quick. I'll be quick then. Have you've had more?
Well, no, I'm just going to finish. Basically, the last one was Peter's really concerned about the wind.
Yes.
That's a joke.
No. Yeah, the wind.
No, he is bothered about the wind.
Yeah.
Well, me too.
Blowing between all these high-rise buildings.
The wind tunnel effect is something that is very significant in when you get a series of buildings as it's
Yeah, I can only repeat some of the things that have been said, but I mean, I thought the skyline and significant views study was a very good quality piece of work, and then that sort of fed into the tall building study, which we didn't all agree with in its entirety, but at least there is a policy in place, and this, whilst it says in the application, has been taken into account. I can't see that is the case at all, because you know, these buildings are much taller. In one case, more than 2.5 times the indicated policy limit. So, you know, that isn't taken into account for me at all, really. And the landmark building is justified. I think it was to signify the entrance to Derby. You know, there's sort of lots of ways you can signify an entrance without having something of that kind. You know, we all know, I'm sure, cities around the world have got things that do signify entrances to city centres and so on. But
they usually work
aren't all just a box like that. So yeah, I'm unconvinced really that they've spent very much time in the matters that really matter, you know, the factors that really matter. Probably done a lot of work on the economics of it.
Yeah.
But not enough on all the things that the people have got to live with for the next few decades, really. So, you know, I sort of looked through the national framework, and Section 12 is about sort of, you know, design and cityscapes and everything else. Section 16 is about heritage, and you know, when you look through all the provisions of the national policy, that it just cuts across them all, really. You know, so it cuts across those. It cuts across the local plan that Derby has as well, and doesn't take account of the work that's valuable work that's being done in terms of large buildings and so on. And I suppose just two final points. You know, there's really not enough attention given to the impact on the importance of the cathedral tower. They use the words that it's at the lower end of harm, you know. So I think it's at the upper end of harm, you know. And also the World Heritage Site has not been given sufficient consideration in the application, and you know, we've seen Historic England wasn't concerned about that, and quite rightly so, really. So there's very little that you can say in favour of this, other than it is demolishing some buildings that are not particularly good. But they've not given consideration to the in combination effects as well, with things that have already been approved. Some unfortunately have been approved, but you know, when you start to put all these things together, then you know, BIL and sort of the others, that the overall effect is really going to be quite horrific. So I can only see objection to the proposals as this though.
Yeah. Thanks.
I was going to inquire whether the developers of the DRI site have been apprised of this application, because they're going to have a lot of trouble selling low-rise houses on the site if everybody's going to be overlooked by a 30-storey tower on rising ground. We know the effect from a 15-storey tower which we had at the top of that hill, which was mercifully demolished 8 years ago. I remember photographing its demolition with a certain amount of hubris, which obviously was misplaced. But you know, if you're going to live on the DRI site in a nice little house, do you want to be overlooked by somebody up in the sky? Will you want to buy a house? And of course, if it's not going to get built for years and years and years, these people are going to be conned.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to hear what the developer and his agents think about that, because I think it's very important. Quite apart from the effect on the listed buildings on London Road, of which there are a number, and on poor old Wilderslow, there is a setting issue everywhere with a thing that big, especially roundabout. And, it should come with a heritage assessment the size of a phone book, which I didn't notice anywhere. So, which I think ought to be asked for, even at this stage.
It's a very thin
It
document.
is a very thin and inadequate document. Yeah, anyway, that's all I had to say.
Okay. Have you got enough to go on next?
I was only
I don't think it's got many votes in favour, is it?
Basically, what we're saying is that we have serious concerns about the hire. We have serious concerns about the fact that it's not a detailed application, not to judge it in detail. We have concerns about the impact on conservation areas, particularly the aspects from around the city, the impact that's going to have. We have concerns about the loss of the theatre without a proposal for replacement.
Without a replacement, then you can have a proposal, but if that doesn't get built.
A secure proposal.
Sender Rooms is standing now because there was no proper replacement proposal
No.
or contract let. It needs something as tight as that, if not tighter.
I think we could argue that the theatre in itself is a heritage asset. It's been there for
45 years.
it's been 5 years now and counting.
Wondering how much is best.
And, its loss, I think, with the, as Max says, it's a fantastic.
Concern about the impact on certain on the list of buildings.
Yeah, well, certainly the World Heritage. Yes,
Back of the theatre. Sorry, so that's back of the market.
Yeah.
It's a firm that owns it. Like, would you?
It's all right, I think, we're going to go on to the Bradshaw.
Okay, so the next one to consider is the Bradshaw site. Chloe.
If I was ready. Didn't have to say the same, but I did.
And office blocks. Associated. So again, this site is outside the listed building. These will be one thing that maybe. Obviously, there's a number of listed buildings. Just houses. Where this proposal will be quite close to, obviously, then there's a number. Again, this proposal is an outline planning application for the demolition of the existing shopping units. Once again, it's an outline that states that all matters are reserved. So once again, it's an application to just looking at the principle only. So you're aware, having looked at the information where the site is and taken the layout hasn't changed, as was noted previously. Junction. So this is a series of range from block 1, which is 16.5 metres, which is approximately 5 stories. Block 2, which is approximately 8 stories. Block 3, which is approximately 19 stories. Block 4 at 14, block 5 at 9. So you see the layout on the site and the two heights of those. See, once again, I'm not going to show you all the visual representations for these, but I'm going to run through what I can. So you have noticed that in some of the visualisations, the Eagle Quarter market proposals for the Eagle Quarter section, the threshold way proposal is noticed in green. London Road. See that we was Westfield basically along front of this decent to the cycle. Obviously the locally listed church is in the place for CSPs, WTs, Florence, some of the section. Then looking from further away, the submission does seem to show both. So just for clarification, the outline in red is the Eagle Quarter proposal. And obviously along London Road, along view, Eagle Quarter on the right, and just to make sure you see, obviously the outline of the virtual way is on the left. So as you move through this particular point. So when we look at this is the outline. It's a Darn Park on a terrace. And that's a quick.
Yep. Thank you, Clive. So, obviously, some similar vein to the market, interpeople market scheme. Yes. Still significant size buildings, spaces in between, green spaces in between. The building on the corner attempts to turn the corner in the form that we can see. Again, we have no detail. This is an outline application. But you can see the relationship of the building to the relatively recent development on the opposite side of Marks and Spencer's and so forth. So it's quite significant. It has a serious impact on the skyline of the city, particularly as the site sort of climbs up Bradshaw Way. Massing there, I think, is not well handled. The spaces between the buildings, the green spaces between the buildings, with the overshadowing that you're going to get there, same principle as the Eagles line, they're going to be pretty depressing spaces. They show them on perspectives as being beautiful, bright, vibrant spaces, but they're actually going to be rather dark and shady. Yeah. The other thing is that this is because of the nature of the site, you can't actually pass through. Once you're in the site, there's nowhere else to go. So there's no filtration through to London Road or anything else like that. And there's no connection back to the Wavensmere Nightingale
support development entirely. And I think the comments that you made previously, Max, about being overlooked, overshadowed, would be relevant in this case, probably more so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I open it up to general discussion. Carol.
I think as with Peter Steer's comment for the Eagle Centre development, I would go with his comment that the development's too dense. The density is a problem, like the Eagle Centre development, plus the height. But it's too dense for that little spot, really.
Yeah.
Too small.
If the towers were lower, there'd be fewer
Less-
units and therefore less dense development.
Yeah.
But the two go together.
The site is even more constricted, isn't it? This site.
It is. It's, you say it doesn't go anywhere, so
Yeah.
it's just sort of on that corner.
Yeah. When they came to talk to us previously, the suggestion was made to actually form a link through onto the spot, which they said they'd considered but didn't take any further.
Well, that's a shame. I think there should be
I think
exits out onto Osmaston Road.
Yeah, and it would enliven that side of the town again, irrespective of the scale of the towns. Yeah.
And I think architecturally, I think they should take their cue from the Nightingale Quarter, which I think they seem to be doing quite nicely.
Yeah.
And if they adopted the same kind of development here, it would be complementary and more in scale.
Castle Fields and the Nightingale Quarter. So, that's the sort of thing we need, but I'm not going to weep for demolition of the existing buildings.
Oh, no.
I think we're
quite happy for those to go.
when those went up, we were told, oh, they're only temporary, they won't last 20 years, and they've lasted 30, isn't
Yeah,
So-
sheds on
yeah. So the sooner those go, the better, but
I agree.
something decent in its place.
As previously, there are advantages
Yeah.
to this. That we're taking away some very poor quality buildings.
Yeah.
Yes.
But let's take the opportunity and put something back that's worthwhile.
Yes.
And this is an important route into and out of the city.
Yes.
Following the inner ring road as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's going to be very visible to people visiting the city as well as those that live there.
I think
That's a thumbs
I think the London Road corner will take a decent building, not bad, but something elegant and this.
Yeah.
But going back up the hill, it needs to be of a scale that is complementary to the residential.
But the real thing is there's a potential to create a thoroughly inhumane and horrible development, which makes you realise if it was as awful as it might be, buildings have still begin to look rather good.
Yeah, it's what we don't want.
You can't guarantee quality on an outside application like this.
Yes, I mean, this is what we're struggling with, isn't it? This outline. It's what you said right at the beginning.
Yeah.
So, should we be considering an outline application for these sites? Is there a rule that says we can't just say, well, there's not information,
Or we can just object to it.
and just object to it?
We can object to it.
I mean, I think to some extent, they're technical.
Yes, I think so. But we are here to judge.
It's up to us to.
It's such a seismic sort of application for Derby, and
Yes.
how can you deal with it like this? With a few sketch blocks on it.
Well,
On a
as
piece of
I said
paper.
previously, I'm worried that we've been backed into a corner
Yeah,
by
exactly.
establishing principles for development and then wishing that
We've never done it.
we need to see detail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
But
agree.
that's a planning issue. That's
No. Is there anything we can do? We can do like that, Chloe, to object to the fact that they even put it in as an outline. I mean, there's nothing to stop anybody doing an outline.
We can object to it as an application.
Just object to it on the fact there's not enough information.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just to obviously See, there is information in there saying that looking at tall buildings of any kind, it isn't appropriate to look at outline because it's in detail, isn't it?
Yeah.
So just quoting that, and just to the site was assessed to be one where a taller building element could be accommodated on the skyline. And once again, that was a 12 stories. So that was between 2 times the contest height, which is obviously important. So obviously blocks 3 and 4 are the tallest. So the 14 stories and 19 stories. So in the tall building study, defined as a local landmark as the 14 stories. 19 stories. So, yeah, so hopefully that.
But what we effectively saying is it acknowledges that a tall building can go on that site, but then beyond that, it ignores the advice of the tall building.
Yeah, that's the fundamental advice. Yeah. So it does reject.
It's always ruled as low tower.
Right.
No, I mean,
Remember, it never even had a fire escape. It never had planning permission.
Tools.
Didn't need it.
Yes.
Well,
The principle of
12 or 15.
of making an outline planning application is a sound one really in some respects. In certain circumstances, when somebody's trying to establish, is this use going to be appropriate on the site, for example, then that's a low cost way of doing that. But this isn't really that sort of proposal. This is much more complex. And, they seem to me to be wanting it both ways. They want to be saying it's an outline application with all matters reserved. So access, design, etc. Are all reserved. But at the same time, they're putting in what is an indicative potential scheme. And I suppose that, the city council need to be, to take advice, I suppose, on how to respond to the applications. And if there is any thought in the council of granting any permission, then it very carefully it needs to be crafted, doesn't it? To take out all that indicative stuff. Because that's not part of it. They've not applied for any of the reserve matters. And that needs to be clear. But there is an opportunity when granting an outline planning permission to set down your own parameters. So it's quite in order to put conditions on that permission. So, for example, a permission that said no building should be more than 10 stories high. Nothing on this part of the site, and it's if they've come with a blank canvas and said everything reserved, well, you're quite entitled to say yes, those uses would be acceptable, but only subject to this range of conditions, and so that would be the way to respond to it, and set out down a set of parameters that control it in the way that you want it to be controlled.
If you turn that on its head and then say that if that application came to us with a simple outline of red on the side and said redevelopment for residential, we'd simply throw it back and say height critical. And that would be our main concern, wouldn't it? Yeah.
There are certain instances like conservation area where you just wouldn't entertain an outline application at all, because the design elements are absolutely critical.
As we said in the previous one, the implications on listed buildings and conservation areas of all these developments is significant, and to be able to judge it properly, you need to see detail.
And if it were granted, I think we'd certainly be in conditions that nothing on the site should be demolished until all detail is agreed. Because otherwise, there's no permission to demolish. And just, you know, so we just end up with a level site like we've seen before.
But much more valuable land than it was before this was granted.
Exactly.
Yeah, good.
I mean, that, well, yeah, exactly. Then they just want to sell it on to the next developer. To fiddle about. Come back and what outrageous.
Okay, in resume then, it's an objection. It's objection on the basis of density and height. Implications on conservation areas and listed buildings. Setting. We would acknowledge that a statement building could go on the corner of London Road, Bradshaw Way.
Provided it complies with the, provided it complies with the tall building
policy, yeah. And that they recommend that they go revisit the tall building, or the tall building study again, following the guidelines that's contained. We've got details.
Following looking at the visualisations regarding views from the World Heritage Site. To
Yes,
include
yes, the
within your
implications on the World Heritage Site. Yes. Yeah,
conservation area.
It's not far away, is it?
They want another letter from ICOMOS.
It's done, really.
And yeah, I suppose that's the point. They haven't followed the guidance from ICOMOS. We need to see that. The Valley Heritage seal, Heritage Site. Historic as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Right, I think that brings us to conclusion, doesn't it? Right. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Back on time.
Yeah.
Forward,
Yeah.
forward the heritage
Okay,
mafia.
thank you.